work and life, two forces that often feel like they are pulling us in opposite directions. We chase success, responsibilities pile up, and before we know it, the days blur together in a cycle of stress and exhaustion. We tell ourselves that balance is something we'll achieve later, after the next project, the next promotion, the next big change. But what if balance isn't something we find in the future? What if it's something we cultivate right now in the way we approach each moment? Buddhist philosophy offers a different perspective on balance. Instead of treating work and life as two competing forces, it teaches us to see them as parts of the same whole. There is no true separation, only our perception of separation. When we are mindful, work is not just work. It becomes an extension of our life, a practice of presence. Likewise, life outside of work is not just a break. It is a continuation of our practice of awareness, connection, and purpose. One of the most powerful Buddhist principles for balance is the middle way. This teaching, central to the Buddha's path to enlightenment, is often misunderstood as choosing a life of compromise. But it is not about settling for mediocrity or finding an artificial balance between extremes. It is about wisdom, knowing when to exert effort and when to let go. It teaches that clinging to any extreme leads to suffering, whether it's overworking to the point of burnout or avoiding responsibility to the point of stagnation. True balance is found in flexibility, in walking the path between effort and ease. To understand this more deeply, imagine a musician tuning their instrument. If the strings are too tight, they snap. If they are too loose, they don't play. The right balance allows the music to flow effortlessly. Our lives work the same way. If we tighten ourselves too much, pushing harder and harder without rest, we break. If we loosen too much, neglecting discipline and structure, we lose momentum. The key is in the fine-tuning, in the ability to adjust as needed, rather than sticking rigidly to one extreme or another. The Buddha himself discovered this truth through experience. Before his enlightenment, he lived both extremes, first as a prince, indulging in luxury and distraction, and later as an ascetic, starving himself in search of spiritual awakening. Neither path brought him peace. It was only when he embraced the middle way, honoring both discipline and self-care, both wisdom and compassion, that he attained enlightenment. This lesson is just as relevant today. If we want to achieve true balance, we must learn to recognize when we are holding on too tightly and when we are letting things slip away. Another essential practice for finding balance is mindfulness. Many of us experience stress not because we have too much work, but because we are mentally elsewhere while doing it. We work while thinking about rest, and we rest while feeling guilty about work. This constant mental tug-of-war drains our energy, making it impossible to be fully present in either moment. Buddhism teaches us to bring full awareness to whatever we are doing. When we work fully engaged without distraction. When we rest without guilt, without feeling the need to be somewhere else. A simple yet powerful way to bring this into daily life is through mindful transitions. Before switching from one task to another, take a deep breath. Fully complete one thing before moving to the next. When you finish work for the day, take a moment to acknowledge it, perhaps with a deep exhale or a small ritual like stretching, closing your laptop with intention, or drinking tea in silence. These pauses, however small, create space. And in that space, balance is cultivated. This practice extends beyond work. In any transition, between conversations, between meals, between moments of activity and rest, there is an opportunity to reset. The breath is always available to bring us back. Instead of rushing mindlessly from one thing to another, we can create a moment of awareness, a brief pause where we realign ourselves with the present. This is not about achieving some perfect state of equilibrium where everything is always calm and effortless. Life is dynamic, always shifting, always presenting new challenges. But when we cultivate mindfulness and understand the wisdom of the middle way, we learn how to adapt. Instead of fighting the waves of life, we learn to move with them. Balance is not a fixed point. It's an ongoing practice of awareness, adjustment, and letting go. Another essential principle for balance is impermanence. We often cling to rigid ideas of what work-life balance should look like. Perhaps a set number of hours for work, a fixed schedule for relaxation, a perfect separation between responsibilities and personal time. But life is fluid. Some days demand more from us, while others allow for more rest. True balance is not found in strict formulas, but in our ability to flow with change rather than resist it. Buddhism teaches that everything is impermanent: our emotions, our workloads, our sense of control. Instead of grasping onto fixed expectations, we can embrace a more dynamic approach, adjusting our efforts based on what each moment requires. A helpful metaphor is the river. A river does not resist obstacles in its path. It does not fight against rocks or fallen trees. It simply moves around them, adapting, flowing forward. In the same way, our approach to work and life should be flexible. Some weeks will require more focus and effort. Others will offer moments of rest. The key is to recognize these rhythms and move with them rather than against them. A powerful way to embody this is through intentional detachment. In Buddhism, this is known as upekkha, or equanimity. It does not mean apathy or avoiding responsibility. It means cultivating a sense of inner peace regardless of external conditions. Many of us tie our self-worth to productivity. We feel successful when we are busy and guilty when we rest. But if we step back, we realize that our value is not dependent on how much we accomplish. The goal is not to do more, but to live with presence, to be fully engaged in whatever we are doing, whether that's working, resting, or simply sitting in silence. A practical way to practice this is through rituals of closure. Many of us carry work-related stress into our personal lives, unable to disconnect fully. A simple practice is to set a small ritual that signals the end of the workday. This could be something as simple as taking a few deep breaths before leaving your desk, physically stepping outside for fresh air, or lighting a candle as a symbolic transition. The act itself doesn't matter as much as the intention behind it, acknowledging that work is done for now, and it is time to shift into another state of being. Similarly, mornings can be structured with intention. Instead of rushing straight into tasks, we can create a mindful beginning, perhaps by meditating, journaling, or simply drinking tea in stillness before the world demands our attention. The way we start and end our days influences everything in between. It's important to remember that balance is personal. What works for one person may not work for another. The key is to listen to yourself. What drains your energy? What replenishes it? Where are you resisting the natural flow of life? The answers to these questions shift over time, and the practice of balance is not about perfection. It is about awareness. Perhaps the most valuable lesson Buddhist wisdom offers is this: peace is not found after everything is done. It is not something we will reach once we check all the boxes or finally figure it out. Peace is found within the process, right here, in this moment. And when we stop chasing an ideal of balance and instead cultivate mindfulness, presence, and adaptability, we realize that the harmony we seek is not a destination. It is a way of living. Now let's explore the deeper meaning of balance, not just as a division of time, but as a state of mind. Many of us think of work-life balance as a scale, on one side our responsibilities, on the other our personal life. But this perspective creates an illusion of separation, as if work and life are two opposing forces constantly at odds. In reality, they are interconnected. Buddhism teaches non-duality. the idea that the distinctions we create are often artificial. Work is not the opposite of life, it is part of it. The real question is not how to divide them perfectly, but how to bring presence, purpose, and mindfulness into everything we do. Imagine a monk sweeping the floor in a temple. He does not see it as a chore separate from his spiritual practice. He is fully engaged in the act, moving with intention, treating each stroke of the broom as meditation. If we approached our work the same way, seeing it not as an obstacle to life but as an opportunity for growth, how would that change our experience? The secret to balance is not working less, it's working differently. One of the most effective ways to cultivate this mindset is through the practice of samadhi, deep concentration. In the modern world, we are constantly pulled in multiple directions. We check emails while eating, scroll through social media while having conversations, plan our next move while completing the current one. This fragmentation leaves us feeling exhausted, not because we are doing too much, but because we are never fully present in what we are doing. Instead, imagine treating each task as a meditation. When working, work with full presence. When resting, rest completely. When spending time with loved ones, be fully there. By bringing deep focus to whatever we are engaged in, we create a sense of fulfillment, no matter what the activity is. Another Buddhist teaching that helps with balance is right effort, one of the elements of the Noble Eightfold Path. It encourages us to recognize where we are exerting unnecessary energy. Many of us spend an enormous amount of time in mental struggle, overthinking, worrying, or trying to control things beyond our reach. But effort should be applied wisely. Instead of forcing ourselves to work harder or to rest perfectly, we can learn to move with ease, doing what is necessary without excess tension. A helpful technique for this is breath awareness. When stress begins to rise, pause, take a deep breath, and exhale slowly. Notice the body. Where are you holding tension? Is your jaw clenched, shoulders tight? Simply bringing awareness to these patterns helps us release them. The more we practice, the easier it becomes to shift from struggle to flow. Finally, balance is not about achieving a perfect routine, it is about alignment. When our actions match our values, we naturally feel a sense of harmony. If work is consuming all our time, we might ask, why am I doing this? What am I working toward? If we feel restless in relaxation, we might question, am I truly resting or just distracting myself? These small moments of reflection guide us back to center. Ultimately, balance is not a final goal. It is a practice, a continuous adjustment, like a tree swaying with the wind rather than resisting it. Some days will feel chaotic, others will feel peaceful, and that's okay. The point is not to control the external world, but to cultivate an inner steadiness, a deep well of peace that remains no matter the circumstances. If this perspective resonated with you, consider sharing it with someone who might benefit. And if you haven't yet, remember to like and subscribe. Let's keep exploring wisdom together. Thank you for being here.